was going to call him, but...
Oh, you came to tell him you love him! I knew it! I was right! I'm right?
I'd really rather talk to him.
Let's start with a character so irritating. His own show made fun of how much everyone disliked him. We're diving deep into the characters that made you groan every time they walked on screen. We'll even uncover the story of a character whose unfortunate end was celebrated by the show's own hero. 1. Steve Urkel on Family Matters.
Is Laura ready for the dance?
Yeah, Steve. Come right on in.
Sometimes a character is created to be a one-time joke, a quirky neighbor who pops in, says a funny line, and leaves. That was the original plan for Steve Urkel on Family Matters. The show was supposed to be about the daily lives of the Winslow family. Then, a nerdy kid in suspenders and giant glasses waltzed in, hiked his pants up to his chest, and asked in a squeaky voice, "Got any cheese?" In the beginning, Urkel was a hilarious pest. His clumsy nature, which always ended with his famous catchphrase, "Did I do that?" made him a breakout star. The problem was, he became too popular. The network saw that people loved Urkel, so they wanted more of him. Soon, the show wasn't about the Winslows anymore. It was the Steve Urkel Show. Every episode was about his wacky inventions, his obsession with Laura Winslow, and his bizarre adventures. The original family became side characters in their own home. For many fans, Urkel went from a funny addition to an overpowering force that ruined the heart of the show. From a nerdy neighbor who took over to a kid who was brought in to save a show but only managed to sink it, our next character is a true legend for all the wrong reasons. 2. Cousin Oliver on the Brady Bunch.
No, I'm real good at ketchup. You gotta hit the bottom real hard, like this.
Think you got the hang of it now, Greg?
If Steve Urkel is the example of a side character who took over, then Cousin Oliver is the live-action king of bad ideas. The Brady Bunch was a huge hit for years. It was all about this perfect blended family with 6 wholesome kids. But as the show went on, the kids started to get older. They weren't the cute little tykes they used to be. The producers got worried. Their solution was to bring in a new, younger kid to be cute again. Enter Cousin Oliver. He was the nephew of Carol Brady, who came to live with the family for some reason. He was a small kid with blonde hair and big glasses, and his whole purpose was to be clumsy and cause adorable trouble. But nobody was buying it. It felt completely forced. He was a walking, talking sign that the show was out of good ideas. To the audience, Oliver wasn't a fun new addition. He was an annoying reminder that their favorite show was getting old. He only appeared in the final 6 episodes of the series, and many people blame his arrival for the show finally getting canceled. He became so famous for this that there's now something called Cousin Oliver syndrome for any show that tries to pull the same trick. Getting rid of a kid after 6 episodes is one thing, but what happens when a show tries to replace its main star with a new guy who has zero charm and expects fans to just roll with it? 3. Randy Pearson on That 70s Show.
There's just enough room in there for me and your mom.
Yeah, the sweetest burns involve doing it with your mom.
For 7 seasons, That 70s Show was all about Eric Foreman and his group of friends hanging out in his basement. Eric was the heart of the show, so when the actor, Topher Grace, decided to leave before the final season, the show had a huge problem. Their solution was to bring in a new character named Randy Pearson to fill the void. And boy, did fans hate him. Randy was supposed to be a mix of the 2 characters who left. He was nice and witty like Eric, but also good-looking and cool like Kelso, who had also left the show. The problem was, he felt like a cheap copy of both. He was handsome, funny, and always said the right thing. In other words, he was perfect, which made him completely boring. He just didn't fit in with the rest of the gang, who were all lovable because of their flaws. To make matters worse, the writers tried to make him a new love interest for Donna, Eric's longtime girlfriend. Fans saw this as a total betrayal. Randy was seen as a soulless replacement, and his presence made the final season almost unwatchable for many loyal viewers. Trying to replace a beloved main character is a recipe for disaster. But sometimes a character is hated not because they are a replacement, but because they exist only to ruin the life of a character we love. 4. Emily Waltham on Friends.
Yeah.
What do we do? What do we do?
I suppose we just try to not look directly at it.
Friends had a ton of memorable side characters, but none of them sparked more anger than Emily. You remember Emily Waltham. She was the British woman that Ross met, and then decided to marry after only a few weeks. From the very beginning, fans were not on her side. Why? Because everyone knew that Ross was supposed to end up with Rachel. Emily was just a giant roadblock. Things got so much worse after the wedding. At the altar, Ross famously said Rachel's name instead of Emily's. It was a huge, embarrassing moment. After that, Emily became incredibly controlling. She agreed to stay with Ross, but only if he agreed to never see Rachel again. For the audience, that was crossing a line. She was trying to break up the entire group of friends. She was no longer just a rival for Rachel. She was a villain who was trying to destroy the foundation of the whole show. Viewers couldn't wait for her to be gone, and when Ross finally chose his friends over her, everyone watching at home let out a sigh of relief. A character who tries to break up the gang is easy to dislike. But what about a main character, the hero of the story, who is so annoying that the audience ends up rooting against him? 5. Ted Mosby on How I Met Your Mother.
Hi, Ted.
Hello, Robin. It's Ted.
Hi, Ted. Sounds like you're having fun.
Robin, have I ever told you that I am vomit-free since '93?
This one is a little strange because Ted Mosby was the main character of his own show. He was the guy we were supposed to be rooting for. For 9 seasons, we listened to him tell his kids the long, rambling story of how he met their mother. He was supposed to be a hopeless romantic, a nice guy looking for the one. But as the years went on, a lot of fans started to realize something. Truth be told, Ted was actually kind of the worst. He was incredibly pretentious and was always correcting his friends' grammar. He was whiny and complained constantly about being single, even when he was dating wonderful women. His obsession with Robin, even when she was with one of his best friends, started to feel less romantic and more selfish. He broke up with a girl on her birthday, twice. By the end of the series, many viewers were more invested in the other characters like Barney and Marshall. Ted, the hero of the story, had become the most annoying person in it. The show's very controversial ending, where he gets together with Robin after the mother passes away, just made things worse for many fans who felt he never really grew up. It's pretty bad when the hero of the show is secretly the villain. But sometimes a character is hated for a much simpler reason. They are just the most annoying neighbor in the world. 6. Kimmy Gibbler on Full House.
How could you call me all those names in school? I wasn't the only one. Everybody was calling you, well, you know, the G word.
Hola, Tannerinos. With that one phrase, Kimmy Gibbler would burst through the door of the Tanner family home and officially lower the IQ of the entire room. Kimmy was DJ's best friend on Full House, but she was mostly there to be the annoying neighbor. And she was really, really good at her job. She was loud, she had famously stinky feet, and she was always saying something dumb or insulting. Kimmy was the classic character you love to hate. She was a walking cartoon. She would barge in uninvited, steal food from the fridge, and get into arguments with Uncle Jesse. The running joke was how much everyone in the Tanner family couldn't stand her, especially Stephanie, who was always ready with a classic "how rude" whenever Kimmy was around. While some fans found her funny, a huge number of people just found her irritating. She never seemed to learn any lessons, and her weird style and loud personality were like nails on a chalkboard for many viewers. She was a one-note joke that the show told for 8 straight seasons. An annoying neighbor is one thing, but an annoying coworker can be even worse, especially when you're stuck with them in the middle of a war. 7. Frank Burns on MASH.
Today at 4 o'clock, they have what's known as the Chimps Tea Party. The MASH equivalent is our monthly staff meeting. The Pentagon says it's necessary, but the kind of meetings we have could prolong the war by at least 2 years.
The TV show MASH was a comedy, but it took place during the Korean War, so it had its serious moments. It was full of smart, funny, and caring doctors trying to do their best in a terrible situation. And then there was Major Frank Burns. Frank was none of those things. He was a terrible doctor, a greedy and selfish man, and a complete coward. Frank Burns was the guy everyone loved to despise. He was played by actor Larry Linville, who did such a good job that people truly hated the character. Frank was always sucking up to the people in charge and trying to get Hawkeye and BJ in trouble. He was having a special relationship with Major Houlihan, but he was a terrible partner to her too. He had no redeeming qualities. He was just a sniveling, incompetent fool who thought he was better than everyone else. When his character was finally written off the show after 5 seasons, nobody was sad to see him go. He was the perfect villain for the 4077th. Some characters are hated for being bad people, but our next character was hated for a very different reason. He was created specifically to make fun of hated characters. 8. Poochie on The Simpsons.
Well, work out of the working man, the thunder of the pins, the sweet smell of shoe disinfectant, the beauty of a perfectly dragged toe.
The Simpsons is one of the smartest shows ever made, and they proved it with the creation of Poochie. In one famous episode, the cartoon Itchy and Scratchy is losing ratings. So the studio executives decide to add a new character to make it cool again. They create Poochie, a dog with a backwards hat and sunglasses who is supposed to be cool and edgy. He surfs, he plays the guitar, and he's full of attitude. The joke, of course, is that Poochie is everything that's wrong with TV. He's a desperate attempt to be cool that just comes off as lame. Homer Simpson gets the job as the voice of Poochie, but even he can't save him. The character is a total flop. The audience in the cartoon boos him off the screen. The episode was a brilliant parody of what happens when networks try to force a cool new character on an audience. Poochie became a legend for being a total failure. He is the ultimate symbol of a character who was designed to be hated from the very beginning, and The Simpsons pulled it off perfectly. Poochie was just a joke, but sometimes a character is hated for a real reason, like being a totally toxic person who only exists to make the hero's life harder. 9. Zoe Pearson on How I Met Your Mother.
Zoe's in love with Ted, and Ted doesn't know. So Ted and Zoe, they're in love with each other, which would be fine if Zoe wasn't married to Colonel Mustard. I mean, the captain.
Speaking of Ted Mosby's many questionable relationships, let's talk about Zoe Pearson. On paper, she seemed like a good match for Ted. She was smart, passionate, and played by the talented Jennifer Morrison. But their entire relationship was built on a foundation of pure conflict. When they met, Ted was the lead architect on his dream project, building a new bank headquarters. Zoe was the lead activist trying to stop him. Their entire romance was just them fighting. She actively worked to destroy his career. He was trying to tear down a historic landmark she loved. It was toxic from start to finish. She was portrayed as a rich, pretentious person who was married when she first met Ted. The relationship felt like a huge, frustrating waste of time for viewers who just wanted Ted to finally meet the mother. Zoe was an obstacle, a walking conflict that was more annoying than entertaining, and most fans were happy when their inevitable, messy breakup finally happened. A girlfriend who fights all the time is one thing, but what about a kid character whose funny gimmick gets really old really fast? 10. Manny Delgado on Modern Family.
How about you just let it go and go play with the other boys?
Huh, she'd love that. Okay, Enid, you want to dance? Let's dance.
When Modern Family first started, Manny Delgado was a breakout character. He was a little kid who acted like a tiny old man. He wore fedoras, drank espresso, and wrote poetry. It was a funny and charming gimmick. He was wise beyond his years and often gave surprisingly good advice to the adults in his family. For the first few seasons, it worked really well. But here's the kicker. As the actor Rico Rodriguez grew up, so did Manny, and the little old man routine started to get, well, old. A 10-year-old who acts like a 40-year-old is funny. A 17-year-old who acts like a 40-year-old is just kind of strange and a little bit cringy. His constant romantic failures and his pretentious attitude were no longer cute. For many viewers, the character just stopped being funny and became genuinely annoying. He never seemed to grow or change, and the joke that made him famous in the first place became the reason a lot of fans couldn't stand him by the end. It's tough when a cute kid character grows up to be annoying. But what about a main character who was supposed to be a good friend, but was actually secretly a terrible person? 11. Lily Aldrin on How I Met Your Mother.
So beautiful.
I know, I'm beautiful. I'm a fairy princess.
On the surface, Lily Aldrin from How I Met Your Mother seemed like a great friend and wife. She was part of the core group of 5 friends and was married to the lovable Marshall Erickson. She was a kindergarten teacher, for goodness sake. But as the show went on, many fans started to notice a pattern. Lily was actually incredibly selfish and manipulative. Let's look at the evidence. She left Marshall right before their wedding to go to San Francisco to pursue her art career, breaking his heart. She had a mountain of secret credit card debt that she hid from her husband, ruining their chances of buying a house. And the worst one of all? She admitted that she had secretly broken up Ted with several of his girlfriends just because she didn't like them. She called it the front porch test. If she couldn't imagine sitting on a porch with Ted and that girl when they were all old, she would find a way to end the relationship. She was a master manipulator who meddled in her friends' lives for her own selfish reasons. For many viewers, this made her the true villain of the show. Lily was a bad friend in disguise. Our next character, however, was also a bad friend, but he wasn't hiding it at all. In fact, his whining was his main personality trait. 12. Ross Geller on Friends.
I think I've been recognized. This happens all the time.
Dr. Geller, I am such a huge fan.
Well, that never happens.
Oh, Ross, where to even begin? Dr. Ross Geller was one of the 6 main characters on Friends, but over the years, he has become perhaps the most disliked member of the group. At first, he was the sweet, nerdy paleontologist who was hopelessly in love with Rachel. But as the show progressed, his flaws became harder and harder to ignore. He was so whiny. Whether he was complaining about his sandwich, his failed marriages, or the classic "we were on a break" debate, Ross was always the victim. He was also incredibly possessive and jealous of Rachel, even when they weren't together. He did some truly questionable things, like hiding a phone message from a man interested in Rachel and trying to stop her from going to her dream job in Paris for his own selfish reasons. While David Schwimmer played him perfectly, the character of Ross just got more and more unlikable as the seasons went on. Today, many new viewers watching the show for the first time are shocked at how much his behavior was played for laughs. Ross was a main character from day one. But what about a character who was added to a show late in the game and was so hated he was erased from existence? 13. 7 on Married with Children.
Love you, you big lug. Give me money.
Do you know where your knee is?
Yes, I do, so give me money.
Married with Children was a show about the miserable Bundy family. They were rude, crude, and that's why people loved them. But in the 7th season, the show's creators made a bizarre decision. They decided to add a new, cute kid to the mix. His name was 7. He was a young boy who was abandoned by his parents, and the Bundys, for some reason, decided to take him in. The audience reaction was immediate and brutal. They hated him. He didn't fit in at all. The whole point of the show was that the Bundys were a dysfunctional family who barely tolerated each other. Adding a sweet, innocent child to that mix made no sense. He was boring, he wasn't funny, and he took screen time away from the main characters. The writers quickly realized they had made a huge mistake. After just a handful of episodes, Seven just disappeared. He was gone. The show never mentioned him again. It was as if he never existed, a quiet admission from the creators that they had created one of the most hated and pointless characters in sitcom history. Making a character disappear is one way to fix a problem. But what if the problem is a main character who completely changes for the worse, right before the audience's eyes? 14. Andy Bernard on The Office.
You need to set me up with her. I know she told you that she's looking, and she's totally not responding to my moves.
What moves?
I have moonwalked past accounting like 10 times.
When Andy Bernard first showed up at Dunder Mifflin, he was an annoying but sometimes funny suck-up from the Stamford branch. He had anger issues and a love for a cappella music. Over time, especially after Michael Scott left, the show tried to make Andy the new heart of the office. For a while, it kind of worked. He became the new manager and had a sweet relationship with Aaron. But in the final seasons, the writers completely destroyed his character. He became a selfish, arrogant jerk. He abandoned Aaron to sail his family's boat to the Bahamas for 3 months without telling anyone. When he came back, he was just mean and unlikable. He quit his job to chase a ridiculous dream of becoming a star, treating everyone around him terribly in the process. Fans who had grown to like Andy were left completely confused and angry. Why had the show turned a once lovable goofball into such a monster? His downward spiral made the last seasons of the show a real chore to watch. A character who becomes a jerk is hard to watch. But our next character was annoying from the moment she first appeared, and her relationship with the show's hero was pure torture for viewers. 15. Diane Chambers on Cheers.
What makes you think that I would ever work in a place like this?
Simple, really. You can't go back to the professor for work. I need a waitress. You need a job. You like the people here. You think that they like you.
Cheers was the bar where everybody knows your name. It was a simple, cozy place full of regular people. And then one day, Diane Chambers walked in. Diane was a graduate student who was the complete opposite of everyone at the bar. She was incredibly smart, and she made sure everyone knew it. She was pretentious, she was long-winded, and she thought she was better than everyone else. She was hired as a waitress, and so began one of the most famous and frustrating on-again, off-again relationships in TV history with the bar's owner, Sam Malone. They would fight, they would make up, they would break up. It went on for years. While some found their witty banter charming, a huge part of the audience found Diane to be absolutely unbearable. Her constant psychoanalysis of everyone and her condescending attitude drove people nuts. When Shelley Long, the actress who played her, left the show after 5 seasons, many fans felt the show actually got better. It became a true ensemble comedy instead of just the Sam and Diane show. Diane was annoying because she thought she was better than everyone. Our next character was annoying for a much simpler reason. Her entire purpose was to make another character's life miserable. 16. Susan Ross on Seinfeld's
Professional advice. Why don't you go see Elaine's friend? She's a therapist.
If you happen to see...
Seinfeld was a show about nothing, and it was filled with characters who were not exactly good people. But Susan Ross was in a league of her own when it came to being a drag. Susan was the TV executive who became George Costanza's fiancée. And from the moment they got engaged, it was clear that George had made a horrible mistake. Susan was just there. She wasn't particularly funny or interesting. Her main role on the show was to be a constant source of misery for George. She made him get rid of his friends, she was boring, and their relationship had zero chemistry. The audience felt George's pain. We were trapped in this relationship with him. The writers knew how the audience felt, and they gave Susan one of the most shocking and darkly hilarious exits in TV history. She passed away from licking the cheap, toxic glue on their wedding invitations that George had picked out. The reaction from George and his friends was not sadness, but quiet relief. It was a perfect cynical end for a character nobody was sad to see go. It's one thing to get rid of a character everyone hates. But what about a character who was a core part of a show from the beginning, yet drove everyone crazy with his voice alone? 17. Screech Powers on Saved by the Bell.
Party, they could come in handy.
Screech, get those things out of here.
What's the matter, Slater? You don't like Mr. Draffy Waffy?
Every group of friends in the 90s had the nerd character, and for Saved by the Bell, that character was Samuel Screech Powers. Screech was Zach Morris's loyal but goofy sidekick. He was a genius when it came to science, but a total disaster in every other part of life. He was there to be the butt of the joke and to provide some slapstick comedy. The problem for many viewers was that Screech was just plain irritating. His super high-pitched voice and his constant awkward exclamations were like nails on a chalkboard. His physical comedy was often over the top and cringy. While he was supposed to be lovable, he often came across as just pathetic. His unending crush on Lisa Turtle was more strange than sweet. While Dustin Diamond, the actor, committed fully to the role, the character himself was a lot to handle. For every funny moment Screech had, there were 10 more that just made you want to mute the TV. Screech was annoying, but he was a kid. Our next character was a full-grown adult, a freeloader whose entire personality was based on being cheap and pathetic. 18. Alan Harper on 2.5 Men.
My God, Alan, I can't believe you're sleeping with Lindsay McElroy.
You're sleeping with Lindsay McElroy? My man!
2.5 Men was a show about two brothers. One was Charlie, a rich and carefree jingle writer. The other was Alan, a cheap, whiny chiropractor who moves in with his son after a messy divorce. Alan was supposed to be the relatable, normal guy compared to his wild brother. But very quickly, he became one of the most annoying characters on television. Alan was a professional mooch. What was supposed to be a temporary stay at his brother's house turned into over a decade of freeloading. He was incredibly cheap, always trying to get out of paying for anything. He was a constant complainer, whining about his misfortunes even though he was living in a beach house for free. He was selfish and made terrible life choices, always expecting Charlie and later Walden to bail him out. He was a human parasite played for laughs, but after a few seasons, many viewers just found him sad and intensely frustrating to watch. A character who is a total mooch is hard to root for. But what if a character's only personality trait is a sound so annoying it became a global catchphrase? 19. Janice on Friends.
Oh, sweet.
Well, I knew you had the Rockies, and so I figured, you could wear Bullwinkle and Bullwinkle, or you could wear Rocky and Rocky, or you can mix and match Moose and Squirrel.
Oh my God. If you heard that sound, you knew exactly who was about to walk through the door. It was Janice, Chandler Bing's on-again, off-again girlfriend for years. Janice was a character who was designed to be as annoying as humanly possible. From her loud, nasal laugh to her obnoxious New York accent, everything about her was designed to get on your nerves. And yet, she was brilliant. She would show up at the worst possible moments, creating chaos and cringy situations for the entire gang. She was clingy, she was loud, and she had no sense of personal space. The other friends couldn't stand her, and the audience felt their pain. Every time Chandler managed to break up with her, everyone would breathe a sigh of relief. But like a bad penny, she always turned up again. She is the queen of the characters you love to hate. You groan when you see her, but you have to admit, the show wouldn't have been the same without her. Janice was an annoying character who kept coming back. But our final character was so disliked that she was brought in to replace two fan favorites, and it backfired completely. 20. Tori Scott on Saved by the Bell.
Jimmy. Hi, Zach. Hey, Bubba. You getting ready for the big dance?
Ready? You kidding me, Mama? I was born ready.
During the final season of Saved by the Bell, the show ran into a big problem. They had filmed a bunch of episodes, but then the network ordered more. The problem was the contracts for two of the main actresses, Tiffany Thiessen, who played Kelly, and Elizabeth Berkley, who played Jessie, were already up. So, for a block of episodes in the middle of the last season, Kelly and Jessie were just gone. To fill the void, the show brought in a new character named Tori Scott. Tori was a tough girl who wore a leather jacket and rode a motorcycle. She was supposed to be a cool, new love interest for Zach. But fans hated her. She had zero chemistry with the rest of the cast. The storylines with her felt forced and out of place. And then, just as suddenly as she arrived, she was gone. The final episodes of the season brought back Kelly and Jessie for graduation, and Tori was never seen or heard from again. It was a bizarre, disjointed end to the series, and Tori became the symbol of that weird, final season that many fans just pretend never happened.